It's nice to be back here at Ohio Linux Fest. It's been a year or so since I've been here, so it's always a good time when I come back. And this particular conference holds a special place because this year, all three of my very first people who encouraged me to stay involved in open source, two of which are keynoting, Ricky Inslee and John Mad Dog Hall, along with Beth Lynn, most of you know her. They were the three that probably my very first Linux event encouraged me to stay involved. And here we are 10 years later almost, and I'm still going. So it's a good event to be at. And if you're wondering why you're doing this or why you got involved in the first place or even how you stay involved and stay motivated, this is probably one of the better conferences to be at to find that if you haven't already. So what I want to talk about today is an introduction to Zeek. I bet none of you have heard of Zeek. How many of you have heard of Zeek out there? How many of you heard of Bro? All right, Bro is now Zeek. Obviously, we changed the name for a whole host of reasons. But for those of you who don't know the history of that or wondering why would you ever have a project called Bro, it goes back to 1984 and George Orwell and Big Brother. And you know, keeping in mind as you write these different types of tools for security purposes, they could be used for either good or bad. So we always want to keep in mind that these tools could be used either way. So what is Zeek? Zeek's an open source network security monitoring framework. Seth, if he was here, he's one of the co-founders and one of the core maintainers, and he's supposed to be on his way over. He would tell you that it's a language that works as a tool. I say it's a tool. It was originally named Bro. Vern Paxson created this in 1995 at Berkeley. So it's been around for a long time. And it's used by the U.S. government along with many other agencies, a lot of universities. BYU is one that uses it, and several others. Used in most SOCs, incident responses, threat hunting, network forensics, all of those type of things. That functionality has been integrated into Zeek. And Zeek is also BSD licensed. So they throw it over the fence. Whatever you want to do with it, you can do with it. The corporate sponsor, Corelight, who pays my check, they employ me, but I work for the Zeek Community. They even compete with some organizations that build their security stack on top of Zeek as well. So there's many things like Bricata or Rock NMS or others or Security Onion all have Zeek in their framework. So at times we compete with ourselves, or Corelight competes with others using Zeek. But what is it? Like some people ask, is it an IDS? No. Is it a particular tool? Like is it a solution? It is a tool in a set of solutions. So it's data without judgment. We don't tell you what the data is. We just make it available to you. The logs are very rich and deep. It's got a wide breadth. There's probably 30 different log types right now. And we just make sure that you can see in depth to your network. Now, you'll notice that on these logs, you see the real pretty ones. Those are the ones that the corporate sponsor does. The other ones that can be found in our Zeek documentation, they're the ones that the community does. So you can see the look. One has that developer feel, and one has that marketing feel. But they're all the same logs, and Zeek gives you those logs and insight into your network. But it's more than just a tool that you get out of the box that you can't customize. So many of the tools that we have in the tool sets today where you monitor your network aren't easily customizable. Now, Zeek is customizable. As the landscape changes, the community has the opportunity, and I say community, and when I say that, I mean anybody who's out there writing scripts to extend the capabilities of Zeek. You have the ability to do that yourself. And so you can do that by going to packages.zeek.org and seeing I believe we're up to 113 now. I think we've added probably about 25 in the last 9 months. So we're up to those packages. You might have heard of the MITRE Bazaar framework that was released. They released that a couple months ago. It's in the package maintainer. Amazon just released 5 new protocol analyzers that are in the package manager as well. So the community is always extending this capability, and you have the ability to do that as well. So many people here are familiar with the Red Hat Fedora relationship. You're familiar with the canonical Ubuntu relationship and those type of relationships. So the Zeek and Corelight relationship is that Vern Paxson, Seth Hall, and Robin Summer all started what was originally called Broala, and when they changed the name, they had to have a new name. It's now called Corelight. And what it is, and I know there's some controversy around the term open core, but we bill ourselves as an open core company, whereas the open source piece of it is the development model, and the business model is the open core piece of it. And so because the 3 of them founded the organization, Corelight is committed to not only funding the project, but supporting, improving, extending, and making sure that the open source Zeek project stays healthy and is vibrant for anyone who wants to use that particular project in their security stack. So those who are worried that Corelight may be taking over the project or anything like that, that's not the case. It's still a community-based project. It's only being funded by Corelight. And all the core maintainers and developers right now are employed by Corelight. Now, as the community director and someone they brought on board back in February, my goal is to find more maintainers and more developers. And I'm going to get into how we define those later on in the talk. So this is the piece I was hoping that Seth was going to be here for, but I'm not going to dive as deeply into it as he would, but I am going to give you a little bit more information about what Zeek is. So we're going to look into it a little bit more and tell you kind of how you can up your network defense game with it. So defending your network takes several data sources, as most of you know. There's the network traffic piece of it. There's the intel, the logs, the host data. Like all of that takes to you have to have several sources to really look into what's coming across your network. Everything has to traverse your network, and it's not just focusing on like host-based monitoring and detection, but it's also like any device that connects, those Internet of Things devices that connect to your network, or when your employees, bring your own device, right? You're setting up your own programs and their phones are connected. You need to know what's happening on your network. So a lot of times, we need complementary tools, and these, the network for the breadth, the endpoint for the depth, the intel for your external piece of it, and then your logs for your operational detection. So how does Zeek help you monitor all of this and make sense of it? So I bet most of you are very familiar with PCAPs, that provides, that high fidelity insight to your network. But those of you who are familiar with PCAPs know that it takes a lot of space, and you can't keep a lot of data around for a long time. Even well-funded enterprises only keep those for a few weeks, maybe a month, before they need to flush all that data because it's so big. It gives you great insight, but the data is not compressed, and it's very wide. And your intrusion detections, they're prevalent and they're a valuable tool for identifying a lot of different malicious traffic, but it's driven by signatures and subscriptions and how you set up those. And then, you have to have your customization for that, and you're limited on what signatures are provided by that system. Now, NetFlow, it's going to give you, it's probably the most commonly deployed tool, but I'm probably not telling you anything that you don't already know. But it's going to give you, it's like your phone bill. It's going to tell you how long the call was, when it happened, but that's about it. It's going to tell you the length of the call, but you're not going to know what was discussed. You're not going to know what happened during that call. You might get, your IP addresses and your ports and that sort of stuff, but it doesn't give you the insight as to what was transferred across your network. So sometimes you need something that gives you that high look, that fidelity look, like a PCAP. It also, you want that resilience or reliance, like the information that you get from an IDS, but you don't always want to rely on signatures, and you want to have the ability to store that data for months or years if you need to. And so where those gaps, where we see those gaps in PCAP and we see the gaps in IDSs and with NetFlow, there's a reason you combine all of those. Well, those gaps that you see in those tools, Zeek fills in the gaps for those. And again, it's all open source. You could go to zeek.org and download it, right now if you wanted to. So how is Zeek different? It's not an IDS, it's not a packet capture tool, and it's not a network analyzer. It's different from all of those things. And for a long time, people thought, oh, Zeek is an IDS. Well, it's really not. It performs and gives you real-time analysis of dozens of protocols. And like I said, Amazon just released 5 new protocol analyzers. So the community is always upping what Zeek can do. So not only does it give you the real-time analysis of common protocols like HTTP, DNS, SSL, they're also logged alongside of like your IRC, your MySQL, and others like that. So Zeek works in concert with your IDS stuff, your host logs, and your SIM. So while we give you this data on the open source side, you have all these logs, you got to do something with them. Some people like to grep the logs and look at them. It's very painful and time-consuming, tedious, and often frustrating. So you have to have a SIM. So a lot of people use Splunk, a lot of people use Elastic or Humio or others to analyze this data. We just make it easy for you to get that data and then put it into your SIM of choice. And so where host-based monitoring has those blind spots, Zeek's going to give you your peripheral, kind of like on your rearview mirror when it says objects may be closer than they appear, and they give you a wider area. So Zeek is going to give you the data to figure out what's happening where the others fall short. And remember, this data is without judgment. Zeek's not going to tell you if it's right or if it's wrong. It's just going to give you that data. And it doesn't rely on subscriptions or signatures, and it's a continual analysis of a variety of logs. And so you get to decide what you want to focus on based on how you have your alerts and set up in your network stack. So you can see that it is a different tool. And hopefully you're starting to see that it does fill in those gaps where others fall short. And I'm not saying anything bad about any of the others. I don't really care where you get your Zeek from. I don't care if you get it from the Zeek website, if you get it from Security Onion, if you get it from Bricata, wherever, just go try it out. And then there's lots of other enterprise level support that you can get out there. I'm not going to say just Corelight because there is others out there. I might be partial to Corelight, but I'm not saying that you have to do that at all. So how does, Zeek, monitors the network traffic. Doesn't matter how you get your traffic in there, whether it's through a network tap, whether it's through the spam port or a packet broker, doesn't matter. Zeek's just going to turn your network traffic into usable logs. And it's a way to parse out the normal traffic, flag abnormal traffic, export the data from the Zeek logs, parse them into different text files, and then be able to read them, like I said, in the SIM of your choice. So here's some of those logs that I was telling you about. The cool thing about the Zeek logs is they're pivotable. So they'll have a unique ID. So let's say you were looking at the con log and you saw you saw something there that made you go, let me look at it. So you're looking through there and you see where maybe there was an HTTP IP address, or you can, any of those type of things. Once you see that unique ID, you could see is it in your HTTP log. If it's in there and it's leading you to the other logs, you'll be able to pivot between the logs and figure out what somebody was doing on your network. So it's not like every log has a unique ID, or every IP address on every log is unique. It's a pivotable, unique ID that follows it across all log types. I'm using cards up here because I tend to talk very fast, and by having just to flip the cards, I'm slowing down. So if I do talk too fast, let me know. So you can also see here that there's a lot of different ways that people use Zeek. And these are just a tip of the iceberg what people are doing with it, and how the detection capabilities that Zeek gives you. Now, Zeek's not going to tell you that until you analyze it, but the information is going to be there. So a lot of times you get that information, and maybe something happens, but if you're using the Zeek logs, you could go and you keep them. You could go back and figure out what happened even before like a 0-day event happened. Before Twitter blows up and says this thing happens, if you're looking at your traffic, you're going to be able to see that early on. I don't really want to get into these use cases only because I'm not the experts. All the detail, that's why Seth was, I was hoping he was going to be here to go through this piece, but I guess he got held up. But I'm not going to go through all the details, but basically what all of these use cases are saying is that whether you're incident responding and you're looking at something that showed up in your DNS log, those pivotable UIDs can lead you to all the other logs to find out what happened. So where you might have an incident response where you're in your SOC and you get this alert, and then do you call your team in at 2 a.m. or do you really take a deep look at the logs first before you spin up a whole alarm system across your organization? So Zeek will give you the opportunity to dig deep first before you send out that response to your team. So maybe a deeper look than what you would have had without it, and you would have spun your whole incident response team up and got everybody worked up at 2 a.m. when if maybe you could have taken just a little bit deeper look into all the logs, you would have found out it might have been something to cause that, but it could have been something minor that wouldn't have caused everybody to come in at 2 a.m. The other use case that we have that Zeek was proven to be helpful in is threat hunting. So incident responders and threat hunters alike use Zeek. So I don't know how many of you all are in the side of the house. How many of you all are incident responders? Anybody? Or threat hunters? Or maybe you're system administrators and you have to deal with this kind of stuff. Yeah. So and I think a lot of times the corporate side of things, especially on the enterprise folks that deploy Zeek in their solution, oftentimes only look at, they focus on the CISOs and the threat hunters and the incident responders that have that as their title. But what they oftentimes, or we oftentimes don't look at, is anybody who's a system administrator who has to watch that network. Zeek is open source. It's not, however you want to use it, you can use it and see proof of concept, see what you need to do with it, and learn to do that yourself. You don't have to employ 15 people to do this. It's available to you today. But threat hunting, a lot of companies use Zeek to, preempt an attack. So they're constantly monitoring their network traffic, looking for something that's abnormal, filtering out the regular traffic to see anything that's abnormal. We have this great log, and I don't know why I kind of gravitate to it. It's called Weird. And Weird is anything that is not already defined, it's not regular traffic and it's not really defined by your IDS or anything like that, but it's just abnormal activity and it flags it. So if you're using that Weird log, it breaks all the other rules and highlights things that are unusual. And we have one of our folks in our community, her name is Fatima, and she works at the University of Delaware for their security, on their security team. And she actually is now kicking off a blog series on what these weird logs really show and how to use the weird logs more in depth. So if you're someone who is already using Zeek or have used Bro, now Zeek in the past, and you have a great like use case story or some success with it, let me know afterwards, because if you used it that way and you had a great case, then chances are somebody else out there in the community will want to know how you used it as well. And that's not to say we want you to give up anything that is identifying how you've got your security framework set up. We just want to know how did Zeek help you solve a problem? So we can anonymize it and make sure we're not giving away any secrets that you might be worried about on your network. And this gets way more in depth, but the remote desktop exploitation, Zeek was instrumental in a couple places to kind of thwart those efforts and give people peace of mind that nothing was going to get across or behind or sneak around their network or firewall or anything else. So the notes that I think Seth and one of our other engineers actually have added all the particulars about this one. They're available with the slides. I'm not even going to try it again because I will butcher the story, but I can tell you that that it is instrumental in those three cases and others, so you'll be able to have access to all of this. And if Seth gets here, then you'll be able to talk to him as well. We are having some workshops, some Zeek-related workshops throughout 2020. So if you already are a Zeek user, you're contemplating using Zeek, or you have questions about that, we're going to have we're calling them Zeek Hours, which are meetups, Zeek Days, which are workshops. We have our Zeek Week, which is our annual event, and we'll have Tweak Your Zeek. So if you have specific questions about your particular setup, we're going to do some very tailored sessions as well to help you with those throughout 2020. So stay in touch or let me know. My information will be up here in a minute, and you can we'll get you involved in helping with those things. So the community, so Zeek has been around for about 25 years, as I mentioned. However, there hasn't been like a big push for the community. A lot of people didn't, like they knew Bro, but they didn't know Bro changed its name to Zeek. They were aware, but they didn't know what the release cycles were. So now we're organizing the community in such a way that it'll formulate and act very much like all the open source communities that you've been involved with. So there will be online meetings. You'll start seeing subgroups come up. You'll start seeing, like I said, those meetups and those workshops and all those things all around various geographical regions, both U.S. and internationally. So right now, these are two, and most of you all know this because I bet all of you have been participating in open source for a long time. And so you know that participation and communication go hand in hand. That's why you'll see a lot of the communication tools are exactly the same as the participation sides of it. We are looking to bring in some new infrastructure, so you probably are going to see a Slack channel be set up shortly. You'll probably see a few more mailing lists that come out. We're actually having the community vote next month on the tools they want to see. So you'll see some more tools as far as participation and getting help that flow with your current workflow. Most of you, whatever your current workflow is, IRC doesn't always go with that these days, nor does a mailman mailing list. So we're going to look at what we can do to integrate that help into the community's workflow as it exists today. So if you have ideas on that, I would love to hear your ideas as well. So remember when I was saying that Zeek could be a tool, it could be a language, or it's about the data. So we break the personalities and interests up across the community by, when we say users, it's anybody implementing, adopting, or otherwise using the data derived from the logs. And so when you look at those, that's what we call a user. And then the developer is anybody who's writing packages. So if you're extending the capabilities of Zeek by writing a script, you're writing a plugin, maybe you're writing an analyzer. And anybody out here written an analyzer? Anybody? Anybody have ideas for an analyzer? We have a tool that's coming out shortly that Corelight is contributing that will make it very easy to write protocol analyzers. It's very hard at the moment. This particular tool that's going to come out, I'm hoping by early next year, in January, February, to the community. It's called Spicy, and it gives you the opportunity to write your own protocol analyzers. So those folks would fall into the developer category too. And then we have our core devs, because Zeek is, the core code is C++, those are your core devs. So if you're already using Zeek or Bro and you're digging into the code at that level, let me know. We'd like to find more folks who are at that level or at the developer level to get involved and get your feedback. And there's many ways to participate. I had somebody tell me in Atlanta, well, I don't write code. Well, you don't have to write code. There's content, there's events, there's testing, there's feedback you can give. Anything like any other open source community, just because this happens to be on the cybersecurity side, doesn't mean you can't participate like you would in any, pick a desktop OS, and you can participate in it, you can participate here. And so that's why I have like the lattice. I think sometimes those of us who have been around a while, we forget that, to remind people that communities are a lattice, they're not a ladder. So you pick the point, you pick your interest, you pick what personality you have, and you start there. So if your interest is in Zeek as a language and you want to write, you want to be that developer, that's where that's going to intersect. Or if maybe your organization, maybe you're not the security professional in your organization, but your organization could host a meetup, and your security professionals would get the opportunity to have the open source engineers there and learning from them. So there's many ways you can get involved in the Zeek community and help extend that capability and make make networks safer, if you will. I know I go too fast here. So playing with Zeek. There's a lot of different ways you can try it. And the first time I did it, because the build was broke in Ubuntu, I had to compile it. And I texted some of the developers or the core devs, and I said, if this is how hard it is for everybody else, then I feel really bad for the community, because I was ready to throw my computer out the window the first time I did it. Well, they've updated all the repositories, and the next thing that I've done, it should be released probably, well, not me, I had somebody do it. The next 3 weeks, you should see a snap in the Ubuntu Snap Store, which actually works across 42 different distributions. So not just the Debian-based distributions, it'll work on Fedora and others too. So that snap is being tested right now, so you'll be able to play with Zeek straight out of the Snap Store. You can install it from the website. You can get it from Security Onion. Security Onion makes it very easy to download it and try it out as well, so you can get it there. And those pretty logs that I was showing you earlier, you can just go to Corelight and download those logs. So there are these cheat sheets, and I wanted to have some to give out today, but we have to have them reprinted because 3.0 just came out. So they're on the website, and you can get them in a nice, neat, handy, I think it's a 5-page cheat sheet, booklet kind of thing. So this is keeping in touch with me. Not that you have to, but you can go to the mailing list. You can sign up for Zeek at zeek.org. You can sign up for the Devel mailing list. I will tell you that I can answer some questions now, but not a deep dive into how to use Zeek, because I'm just getting started on that myself. But I can probably point you in the right direction if you have specific questions, and I can tell you who to email, where to email, or that kind of stuff. So if you have questions, let me know. Yes?
So you're talking about how they were developing a protocol. I think they helped you develop a protocol analyzer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of curious if you go into a little bit more detail as to how is it that they're writing this? Is it something where you write out a spec for the protocol, or as you see it seems to be, or is it something where there's a community thing with here are the specs for this protocol, this protocol, this protocol?
So no, yes and no. So there's not a guide right now that says this is how you write a protocol analyzer, because it is a difficult process. It's just now how to write a script, how to write a plugin. We have tons of information on that, but that's why Robin Summer, who is one of the founders and core maintainers, is writing spicy to make it easier and put those guidelines out as well. For example, I'll try to go to it here in a second, but packages.zeek.org, you can see the ones that Amazon wrote, and they were analyzers that they used all the time in their network, how they were looking at their network, and they're like, if this helps us, it's going to help the community. So they wrote it based on the needs of their organization and then just released it to everyone. So we don't have how to do that yet out there. If you're interested in doing that, I can definitely put you in touch with people. Just make sure, just shoot me an email and I'll introduce you to the people who can help you get started on that. Because that is something that we get asked about a lot. And nobody, like Corelight or Bricata or security, nobody can identify all the different ways and all the different analyzers that you could use on your, that you need to parse on your network. But if you let us know what you're looking for, chances are we could, I'm not making promises, but chances are there's somebody out in the community that knows how to do it, but they don't have the idea to do it. So if we can partner everybody up, we'll definitely make that happen. Does that help a little bit, maybe? Yep. Just shoot me an email and we'll get that started. Yes.
I'm curious. So, in an organization where a lot of your infrastructure is virtualized in the cloud, like say you're using AWS and you have all virtual private networks and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a place for Zeek within that sort of infrastructure? Does it fit into that kind of environment?
There is, and to be quite honest, it's very difficult to do with the open source side. I won't say difficult. It's tedious to do with just open source alone. Corelight has a virtual or a sensor, a cloud sensor, that makes it easy to get to that. We are looking at ways on the open source side to make that easier to deploy Zeek in the cloud, but it can be done. It has been done. Obviously, Amazon and others do that, but it's not something as simply just going and downloading a sensor right now that would, or a package right now that would make that easy. However, if you're interested in that, I do know there are people who are working on that piece of it, and I'm more than happy to connect you with them. So.
You mentioned Amazon. Do you know, do they build any of their own monitoring on top of Zeek?
Build what on top of Zeek?
Any of their own, like they have all sorts of their own telemetry tools. Like, are they leveraging Zeek under the hood?
Yes. Well, obviously they released the parsers that they're using. So I don't know all the details. We've asked them to clear with legal so they can speak at a couple events. So they're now working through that process in order to be able to tell everybody exactly how they did it, why they did it, what was the motivation behind it. MITRE has been forthcoming when they released the Bazaar scripts. There's a lot of, like if you Google that, Twitter blew up the day they did that. We didn't even know they were doing it. We found out because Twitter blew up around those. But they're in the, if you go to packages.zeek.org, the MITRE Bazaar scripts are in there too. And they're very public about the reasons they did that and why they put it in the repository. So.
You might be able to do something off of those VPC flow logs that they just started doing in Amazon.
But I'll definitely, like if you shoot me an email, I'll put you in touch with our developers our open source developers that are working on that.
For the use cases that you discussed, did they just use Zeek and the logs that it creates, or did they use third-party tools that
Oh yeah.
ingest the logs?
So Zeek isn't the solution. It's not the end all be all. However, a lot of the monitoring stacks have Zeek in there because Zeek gives you the logs. So one company may want to use, I don't know, well, some folks pair Zeek with Suricata because of the signatures. Some folks pair, they take that information and run it through Elastic or Splunk or whatever, but they get the data from several different places, and Zeek is just one level of logs that you can look at. So it wouldn't be something that somebody would use solely standalone by itself. It just gives you that deep look in, and then what you do with it, people pair it with several other third-party tools to get their whole stack. So, and if you go to the Zeek.org mailing list, there is a lot of discussion around how people are using it and what they're pairing it with. And you may have to go back a little ways because sometimes, again, like all communities, when you've been around there for a while and you forget what it's like to be new, you know, all the new stuff happened like maybe a couple years before, so you got to go back a little bit. But then people revive those threads all the time because, oh, I'm now using this, or I want to pair Zeek and Suricata, or I want to pair Zeek and whatever it happens to be. And so there's always the discussion on the mailing list about those type of things. So feel free to revive any thread or stand up a new one and ask, because all the core maintainers and all the open source developers monitor the Zeek.org mailing list. So, yeah. Anything else? And for those who weren't in here when I was setting up and getting my computer set up, if you have a business card, or if you need one, you can write your stuff on mine. Tomorrow's talk, when I'm in the career track, talking about how to, you know, not worry about being afraid to try new things. I'm going to give away the ARM board that has Raspbian pre-installed and Zeek on it. The reason I'm not giving away in this talk is because I still have to flash it. I have the cards ready, I have the images ready, I just have to flash it. So, so if you wanna be in that talk, because you're gonna have to be present to win, put your business card up here, and then I'll draw during my talk tomorrow, and somebody's gonna win the ARM board and get to play around with Zeek on your own. It's a Raspberry Pi 4. So with the kit, I kind of like all the cases and the cables and all of that. It bothers me when somebody gives me an ARM board without all the fluff that goes with it. So I like all the whole kit. So it's the whole kit. So if you're interested in that, please bring your business card up, and I can't wait to see who wins it tomorrow. Anything else? Like anything else I can help you with, either you're interested in or you want to know where you can find out more information or where we're going to be at? We're actually, anybody here going to Miami in December? No? We're going to be down there at the Miami Hack Fest, and so we're going to be doing a capture the flag exercise with Elastic plus Zeek. So it's going to be on 7 December. So if you go to meetups and you go to, I think it's called Hack Miami, it's on 7 December. So if you want to participate in a capture the flag where you get to have some real hands-on both incident responding and threat hunting exercises, we're going to be doing that down in Miami. So there is that. And we are developing a couple of capture the flag exercises that we're going to be rolling out next year that have to do with not only Elastic plus Zeek, but other SIMs plus Zeek to give you that ability to try it for yourself and be a little competitive, because we're going to have some prizes that we're going to be giving away as well. So if that's something you're interested in, let me know, and let me know where you're at so I can like make sure that, you know, or let you know what's going to be the closest one to where you're at, because I think those capture the flag exercises are quite fun, and it takes hours, are not 4-hour capture the flag. That we have distilled them down to about 2 hours. So it's a 2-hour exercise, and a lot of times we bring in some of the SANS instructors and other instructors who are working with us on those programs to actually help facilitate those. So if you want to talk to SANS people, if you want to talk to Elastic people, plus the Zeek people, that's going to give you the opportunity. So follow Twitter, which is @Security. Follow the mailing list, the blog. But this is what is being given away. But it has the case and the cables and all of that. So anything else? If not, yes, sir.
Are there user groups or folks doing meetups here in Ohio?
There is not. So I started back in February, and so I'm just now starting to organize that. So if there is something, we have an office here in Ohio, probably about 20 minutes away, I guess, and be more than happy to organize something or be part of one that's already happening, and we'll be more than happy to bring somebody in to do that. So if you have a thought on that, just let me know, and I'll be happy to organize something, or co-present with someone, or be part of a InfoSec group that's already happening. So just let me know, and we'll make it happen. Yeah. Anything else? If not, thank you so much, and I hope that I'll see many of your faces tomorrow in the career track. So thank you, and have a great day.